First time in 3 years, I could not think of a topic for Toastmasters, and you know I have plenty to talk about. And it's always funny, and I almost always win a ribbon. This past Saturday, I couldn't think of anything. So I did something very smart for a change. I looked at my manual. And according to my manual, I need to do 2 speeches from this series or another series called the Successful Club Series to get my Advanced Communicator Silver. So this is one, and next month I'll do the other one. And then you can bow to me once I have that. Like we so often bow to Michelle, who is truly worthy of bowing to. This is about selecting a topic. It's from the Better Speaker series. I want to say so bad, but I'm not going to. Yay! Selecting your topic. There are basically 2 sources for selecting a topic. Well, what are they, you may ask? Your personal experience. This can be broken down into your interest. What's your favorite hobby?
Riding my motorcycle.
We know that, don't we? We know that. Because that's what she talks about very often. And sometimes she even comes dressed for the part. Which is pretty hot. That's great.
I don't think that was written.
Too much information. It could be sports. Scott, what's your favorite sports?
Baseball.
Baseball. Did we know that?
Oh, yeah.
Of course we knew that, because that's what he talks about. What's your favorite sport, Pat? Not sport, hobby.
Helping people.
Helping people. That would be a great topic for a speech, wouldn't it? Because it's very, very personal. One of my favorite things is travel, as you know. Where have I been?
Minnesota.
North Carolina,
Wisconsin.
Minnesota. I was thinking I've never talked about my trips to Bermuda. They're working trips, it's so hard. But I've never talked about that. So my next speech, after the one for this, might just be about my travels to Bermuda, to work. You could also have your values, your goals, entertainment. Another item of interest, of personal experience, could be your career. Wesley could tell us about his exciting career as a CPA, as could I. What's your career?
Graphic designer.
That is rich for a speech. I've always wanted to know more about graphic design, haven't you?
Yes.
You want to know less, probably. It could be about your family, your ancestors, your child-rearing insights, marriage and traditions. And you know who's really great at that? Effie. We know all about her traditions, like the Chinese New Year we learned a few weeks ago. It could be about your education. We have some students here, Ashley and Shannon. You could talk about your study habits. Ashley, what are your study habits?
Procrastinators Unite.
My son was at UCF. Yeah, really, really bored because why spend your time studying, right? And that's when he really got into fitness and really found his calling. His study habits weren't. Or your achievements in your education. Memorable teachers. Willard, do you have a memorable teacher from when you were on an ELF up in Montana?
Absolutely. Mr. Crumbly used to rap my knuckles with his ruler. I will never forget that.
Try to forget it. It's Christmas time.
Okay.
And some of your favorite subjects or topics in school, like accounting or economics would be great candidates for that. These are some great sources for topics, so you will not be agorapathic. When it's your, or whatever that word is, when it's your time to speak. The next source could be reference material. Websites. You can find anything you want and a lot of things you don't want on the web. So you may be, very bored one day, surfing the web, and something very interesting could be there. That could become a very good topic for a speech. Would you not agree, Scott?
I'd possibly agree.
Absolutely. Or books. Now, I've talked about 2 different books. One of them got me into a little bit of trouble, but what else is new? I talked about the Eat Clean diet, and I thought that nobody had heard about that except for Reed. And when I actually went to his house one time, and there was all these books by this person. I'm like, really? You were serious? You really didn't know who this person was? I thought he was just kidding me. And also, I did another one about stop walking on eggshells, and related it to my dear former sister-in-law, Debbie, who's a nutcase. Got into a little bit of trouble for that one too, but that's okay. I need to learn to be sensitive. Or magazines. Anybody read magazines anymore? Well, there you go. Some people, Sports Illustrated, probably about baseball. Or newspapers. Really? Seriously? Are you kidding me?
They really make them?
Yeah, there's still newspapers around.
Yes.
I actually get the Sunday Sentinel once a week, and my most favorite thing is crossword puzzles, keep my brain active. Good luck with that. The funnies, and there's an editorial page. One is very conservative, Charles Krauthammer, and then there's another guy who's extremely liberal. So I read both of those editorials, and just the contrast in those two. Of course, I dislike one and like the other. But the contrast is wonderful. And that would also make some great topics. So if you ever see an antiquated newspaper or a magazine, those can also be great sources. There's lots of ways to get sources for your material. Now, this is just me. There are 2 topics you probably want to avoid. What are the 2 topics you should almost always avoid all the time anyway? Politics and religion. I'm not real good about the politics part. I would not do a speech just on politics, although sometimes it does creep in. Well, yes, I would. But I probably should. Religion is okay, especially if it's your icebreaker, because that's part of who you are. But building a speech around religion or politics, you're going to have some dissension. So probably best to avoid that. Does anyone have a dog? If you have a dog, you have a speech. If you have a cat, you might have a speech. If you have a dog, you have a speech. Now, Reed has cats and chickens. So I'm sure that's ripe with a speech. So there's lots of experiences in your life that you can come up with a speech. It's really not that hard. So now that you've come up with a speech, what should you do with it, or a topic rather? Oftentimes we get inspired off the cuff. We're reading the newspaper and say, wow, that would be a great idea. Sometimes, as we progress in our maturity, but we don't get old, we progress in our maturity and wisdom, we forget things. So you need to write it down. Otherwise, you will obviously forget it. You can get inspiration, again, from reading things. Books are great sources of inspiration as well. Or sometimes, when you're just walking down a country lane, or taking a walk with your dog or your cat in the morning or the evening. Ashley, one time, told us about seeing a shooting star. And that was very inspirational to her, helped her develop her spiritual side of her life. And she remembered it, and that inspired her. She did a great speech based on her walk at nighttime and seeing the shooting stars. But you do need to write it down because it's easy to forget those things. Would we agree?
Yes.
Give me an amen.
Amen.
Bridget. You now need to, because you've been inspired, and either your personal experiences or your research has given you a great topic, you probably need to narrow your selection. And let me tell you why. I have a great luxury today because I have 10 10 to 15 minutes, I'm loving life. Because there's almost no way I'm going to go over 15. Well, I'm already at 10. It's unlikely that I'll go beyond 15. Sometimes we just have too much to talk about. So we need to consider our audience. With us, that's great. We all know one another. But if you're speaking to a club at a nursing home, you're probably not going to talk about the internet. Or if you're speaking to a very young group at a college or whatever, or a high school, you probably don't want to talk about Social Security benefits. So consider your audience, obviously. Here it's easy. How many people are there? What is their age range? Are they familiar with the topic, or will it be very foreign to them and they need a lot of basic information? And do they have a similar background, interests, backgrounds, education, interest, background, and experiences? Again, here it's really easy because we're very comfortable with one another. We have a great atmosphere here. But if you're in another situation, you have to really, really consider these things. The people you're not familiar with, find some of the background so that you have an appropriate topic. And then narrows your selection. What is the occasion? Does the event have a theme? Our theme today is Election Day, for whatever reason. So you could build a speech around elections, perhaps. That would make sense. And you can always look at Easy Speak and see what our theme is. It's almost always on Easy Speak. So you can know in advance what the theme of this meeting is. When are you scheduled to speak? Again, here it's not a big deal. At 7:30 in the morning, guess what? You're going to speak early. But if you're doing a dinner speech or a lunchtime speech, you would probably need to tailor what you're doing for the time of day that you're speaking. What will happen after your speech? Again, here it's very easy. However, if you're in a different situation, you need to tailor your speech for what's before and what's after, and so on and so forth. It's just about tailoring your speech for the situation. More about narrowing your selection. What are your own abilities? Do you have enthusiasm and interest? When I was talking about the alternative minimum tax, I was the only person that was really excited. Michelle confirms. I was so excited to talk about the alternative minimum tax. Unfortunately, no one else agreed with that, but it was great. I had a great knowledge base about the alternative minimum tax. I'm seeing some blank stares, and that's fine. I am an authority on the alternative minimum tax, as are some other people in the room. More about narrowing your selection. Be specific. Is the topic specific enough for the time allotted? I've said this before. I've learned not to do a speech where I say, I have 7 things I'm going to talk about. So what happens?
You get to 3.
You get to 3. So I'll say, I have a couple of things to talk about, or I have a few things to talk about, and that's very wide open. If I leave something off, you don't know I left it off. I did this speech one time, the 50 reasons I don't live in Minnesota. But I did 1, 2, 3, 50. So that was more of a joke. That was a little bit different. Do the subpoints support the topic and add to the speech? Obviously, you should have points and then subpoints. What can be cut from the body of the speech? Again, we only have 5 to 7 minutes usually. I did a class last night, 3 hours. It was exciting. You want to learn about auditing? Come on down. It was great. But here, if you only have 5 to 7 minutes and you are verbose like I am, and you have a rich reservoir of things to talk about, you're going to have to narrow it down and leave off some things. Conclusion. When you combine your personal experience, when you combine the resources available to us, and consideration of all those other things, you have an excellent speech topic, and you're going to win the ribbon every time, unless you're competing against me. Thank you so much.